Hello, good evening. It's Tuesday the 9th of July and here we are still sideways at potentially a little bit of a support level in Bitcoin, and we'll take a look at some altcoins which, yeah, a lot of them are kind of, some of them look like they have pretty good support levels here that we could bounce from. So let's take a look at some of them and we'll go from there. First of all, let's go to Bitcoin. Volume profile on my chart because somebody asked me about volume profile and was I worried about it, and I want to make a point about this because not many people learn about volume profile. And I used to work for a firm that sold technical analysis to hedge funds, and the guy that ran it that I worked for, Clive Lambert, wrote the book basically on volume profile and taught it to CMT students and so I learned from the best, and one of the things he taught me I will explain to you. But for now, here we are still sideways in Bitcoin in the important range that we identified. So if we look at the good grief, no. Let's look at where we are sideways here. At this potential equal measured move level, but stuck underneath this 200-day moving average, and yeah, a little bit sideways. We need to get back above this 200 moving average, which coincidentally lines up with, if I draw in a 236 fib retrace from this high to low, actually because we are in a bigger ABC, you should really put that 236 fib over both swings if that's what you think you're looking at. And that lines up with our 236 fib retrace. So when we look at Bitcoin, a close and hold above 58,248, points to more upside from here. Next resistance would be 61,000 and then potentially 63,000 before we see a little bit of a pullback. So 58,250 is really key short term, and then 61,300. Okay, so the question I got asked was, am I not worried because if I put volume profile on, they saw somebody saying it would go much lower from here. Okay, now if we put in from the swing low that we made in September 2023 in the indicators, there's a pretty cool indicator called visible range volume profile. If I put that on, now volume profile tells you how much volume was done at each price, and it's pretty interesting. So this indicator on TradingView shows us for the visible range, and you can see where we have paused in Bitcoin here is what I would call a low volume node, right? So clearly there was a lot of volume done down here in, the 30,000, and then the next kind of big volume level is here around in the low 40,000s, around 40,000, and potentially that is where we would come back to. But if we look at this last year, we can see that right where we have found support and paused going down is the lowest volume in that entire kind of year-long range. So this is called a low volume node. It means not much was done, not much was bought and sold there in terms of volume. And one thing about these that's interesting about these levels is when you come to them, one or two things happen. Normally, if you're going to go straight through it and down to the big volume areas, you'll drop straight through it like a rock pretty fast. But they can also be really interesting support and resistance levels. And I was always taught, don't ignore those low volume nodes. I have found them to be really interesting bounce levels. So, if I zoom it out, it gets changed. I'm just going to look at the last kind of year then. And this is potentially in line with our equal measured move level, a pretty interesting then low volume node area as well. So that kind of adds weight to this potentially being support. I hope that answers your question. Yes, if we break down from here, I do think back towards these lows, back towards the low 40,000 is possibly where we could end up. But for now, I'm going to stick with this potentially is a pretty interesting level. And you can see we've dropped underneath this 200 moving average before and gone sideways. It has become resistance, and we've had to work really hard to get back above it. But when we do, we're on the move. So then everybody's question at the moment is also, what's going to happen with Mt Gox? Am I not really worried about Mt Gox? you know, if the total volume of the Bitcoin market, what is being released by Mt. Gox represents 0.7% of all Bitcoin supply. Now, I know because so much of that Bitcoin is held by whales in big, non-movable wallets, I think short term it could have a little bit of a wobble. We could see a little bit of a dip in the market. But really 0.7% of total supply, I really do think that there's plenty of room for that amount to be absorbed in the market. And I don't believe that everyone will sell at once. I could be wrong. My friend Dave, who got me into Bitcoin way back when, in 2011, I bought my first Bitcoin, has been waiting 10 years for his Bitcoin. I'm pretty sure he's going to sell some, but he's not an idiot. He's not going to sell them all at once. I'm not sure everybody is going to sell all of them either. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on here's the next question. How to trade this kind of sideways range then, if we know where we're going. When you're in a sideways range like this, if you really believe that we are going to go lower from here and you don't want to be riding Bitcoin whilst these Mt. Gox releases happen, you need to sell it at the top of this range, which is kind of right where we are now. We're back at this 58,250 level. In a sideways range like this, you trade it as a range. You sell the highs and you buy at the lows. Now, what if you sell here at somebody will say to me then, well, what if I sell here? Now, should you sell this short as a short trade? I don't think that's a really good idea because of this support and because I don't think long-term Bitcoin is a short. I think there are some altcoins that you could short, but probably not Bitcoin. But if you wanted to lighten how much Bitcoin you held whilst we went through this kind of Mt. Gox thing, this is the resistance. This is really the key resistance. If we get above here, there's nothing to stop you buying Bitcoin back up again and then wait and see what happens when we get up to 61,000 next. And maybe we get up back to this swing high and 63,000 and we'll go from there. Once we get past there, we can start talking about this being a bullish flag and on our way back up to the top of the range again. So when you've got a sideways range like this, honestly, you sell the highs, you buy the lows, you look for it to stay in the range until it kind of breaks out. That's how I'm seeing Bitcoin at the moment. I am not selling at the moment, but I got rid of a lot of leverage much higher up here when we did a double top. So yes, that's how I'm trading it. Let's talk about Ethereum, because we are holding a pretty interesting support level in ETH. Again, just like Bitcoin, we're stuck underneath this daily 200 moving average. This is going to be our key as to whether we're going higher again in ETH. Now, because this is a inside swing, so it's inside the range of this swing, we can't do this as a kind of big ABC yet. So I'm going to go from this high to this low, say this 236 fib level. That's going to be the level that confirms we're going higher if we can close and hold above it. It's at 3,086, and that's right where our daily 200 moving average is again. And again in ETH, if you think we're not done, we're going to turn lower from here, sell it at the top of the range, buy it at the bottom of the range, and wait and see which way we break out. Potentially we have done a 3-wave equal measured move correction from this low here, and yeah, we could be done. We might not get above and hold above 3,000 ETH. Here's our textbook equal measured move. Confirmation that we're going back to the bottom of the range for me is going to be underneath 2,993. So, stuck in a sideways range, trying to make a base in ETH and Bitcoin. And yeah, it's tough out there, isn't it? Let's talk about some other meme coins, because not all of them look terrible. There's the big daddy of meme coins, which is Doge. Get asked about Doge a lot. This is quite an interesting level in Doge. I talked about it before. I'm going to put regular candles on here. Now, big picture in Doge, we bounced off the lows and our first target was this 236 fib from the all-time highs, and that's where we got rejected. Because we did a really nice 5-wave rally up into this 236 fib, I always thought that a nice 3-wave correction back in Doge would be a really cool buy for the next swing higher. And when you measure these 3-wave corrections, there's a couple of things I look for. I look for the middle leg to be 3 waves, and I look for a relationship between the first and the third swings. It's a very common relationship for this third swing to be 61.8 of this first swing. So I measure them. I measure from this high to this low, project it from here, and here we are sideways at this 61.8 level. If we get stuck underneath it, and if we get stuck underneath this weekly 50 moving average, which has previously been really good support and resistance for Doge, we are likely to continue lower down to 0.0661. For now though, we're a little bit sideways at this level, and I don't know if we're going to go higher. I think if we bounce and we can get back above the weekly 200 moving average, because we think that this is a 3-wave equal measured move, I'm going to look for that 236 fib to be my first target on the upside. That's at 0.1248, and we'll go from there. For now, again, just like everything else, we're in a little bit of a sideways range. I wouldn't say that this is a bullish reversal yet quite at this level. Let's go down on this 4-hour. Yeah, so we haven't even flipped these lower time frame moving averages yet, you know. So I'm looking for Doge to build a base here. One thing that I will say is short term. Let's go back to the weekly. More than 50% up on last week's nasty drop and back above that weekly 200 moving average. I would say we're going up again. For now, this is a kind of sit on the sidelines and watch and see if we can build a base that we can launch from here in Doge. And again, if we continue lower, 0.066 is where we go, bigger fib retrace level. So I have to say that this one looks better than some of the others. So whiff is always a really popular. Now whiff obviously doesn't have that much price history the way Doge has. And one thing that all new coins tend to do is they tend to not make those big 5 waves moves. They tend to make 3-wave moves quite a lot. And we've seen that since the launch in March in whiff. So we saw 3 waves up, 3 waves back here. And this is all choppy, overlapping, corrective price action at the moment. But if we count this as a middle leg and a bigger 3-wave correction, one thing we can say about whiff is if I measure from this high to this low, project it from this high of the correction, so we go 1, 2, 3, we didn't hold this 61.8 level, we fell underneath it, and we're holding underneath it, which usually for me points to us continuing lower to the equal measured move. So although we're a little bit sideways here and looking pretty good, I think that there is quite, unfortunately, the possibility in whiff that we continue lower down to 1.16. So for me, this is just a little bit of one of those charts when I would say do nothing. Now one thing about these meme coins, Solana meme coins and all of them really, you know, way back when we used to have to make a lot of money with these altcoins, you know, we used to use quite a lot of leverage. And one thing you don't need with these meme coins is a lot of leverage. In fact, you don't need any, which kind of makes it a much more fun trade, because the moves that it makes when it moves so much that you don't need leverage to make a shitload of money. But by not having any leverage, it means you can't get liquidated. You know, as long as you've got one whiff or one whatever, yuppie whatever coin, you can hold it until it spikes. And what you have to do then is just look for targets on the spikes and have clear kind of idea of where you're going to get out. And I think that's great. You know, less people are getting liquidated and wiped out by not using leverage and making pretty good money on these meme coins. And I think that's why that they're so popular. But that's where we are then. So don't go all in on any of them. And yeah, when they bounce pretty nicely, but they are pretty crazy. Okay, so whiff, I think there is a risk that we continue lower. I really don't like these kind of, it's pretty bearish consolidation. Now, whiff will be in a ripping run again if it holds above 2.28, back above this 61.8 resistance level. Do fib retrace levels help us any from this low? Didn't quite tag this 886, which would normally be a little bit of a trigger. So this is one of those charts where it doesn't look like they're looking at the fib levels, unfortunately. So I think this is a little bit sideways, and there is a risk in whiff that we have, unfortunately, a little bit further to fall in this one. So another request I got is for a new coin, which is Billy. Let's start with a blank slate and some candles. So this is, first off, you can see this is quite a new coin. It's quite hard to trade these with what's going on and look for levels, and how to trade it. And one thing I will say, remember when you do these coins, they do tend to make these big kind of three-wave moves, and this is a little bit of what I think we are seeing here. Now, what changed here was, I think we could argue that potentially this was 5 waves, and maybe this is 5 waves from this low. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if that's the case, with a 3-wave correction, and in which case this is a little bit more bullish, because we could say, well, perhaps this is wave 1 and wave 2, and this is a maybe wave 1 of 3. And if so, you know, this wave 1, we really should be looking for maybe 50% or 61.8 and back to the bottom of this wave 4. Now, does this are even fibs working on this? What I like to do sometimes is look at this first swing and see what's going on. We did keep struggling, didn't we, at this 50% level? So we rallied 50%, 50% back. Are we about to make that bigger run? I would say, yeah, potentially. I would look for, therefore, a nice 3, having done 5 waves up, and what like here. So we have 5 waves up, nice 3-wave back, halfway back, and next rally. Look for it to repeat like a fractal. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up, look for 3 waves back, and look for it to try and swing again higher, which is going to be around this 0.15 level. That's where 50% back is. And obviously, if we don't get a buy signal here, and if we keep going lower, we're likely to do potentially a bigger 1, 2, 3. I don't think that should happen, but you know, I'm going to trade what I see with this one and look and see if that 0.15 holds for the next swing higher in Billy. Let's look at Pepe, because Pepe is one of those ones that have done really outperformed. And these fib levels for me are working really nicely, and these moving averages. So I'm going from, I draw my fib retraces levels from the all-time low in September 2023 to the high that we made in May. And you can see that this 236 fib was very nice support for a big bounce, and then it was resistance, 38.2, nice bounce, and we have got underneath the 50% level. I've also, for good measure, put my fib retrace levels on this most recent swing, low to high, and I'm looking for confluence where they overlap. Now, normally, I would say, gosh, we're underneath the weekly 20 moving average that was support here, and when that happens, you know, it's quite likely that we stay underneath it, and we continue lower, potentially all the way down to this newly minted weekly 50 moving average, and we've got further to fall unless we can hold above 902. 900, which is this weekly 200. So far we're not, we're a little bit sideways, stuck underneath it. So I look for other things to maybe help me. So this measured move thing, maybe that's gonna help decide. So if I measure this first swing, here's our lovely 3-wave correction in the middle. You can see, yeah, maybe we are sideways at one of those 61.8 levels where we could bounce from. So just like Doge, Pepe is also at one of those maybe levels. If we continue lower, we're going to look for between 600 and 678, and around this daily 200 moving average in this kind of range here. This is the range we're going to be looking at. So just like Bitcoin, just like ETH, everything is at like a maybe support level, but we haven't kind of got that really clear price action to say that we've made a bottom and completely run out of, you know, everybody's no bulls left, and And then when there are no bulls left, that's usually when it rallies. So a little bit of a sideways. I think Pepe potentially, if we can't hold above and regain 882 and hold it as support, I think we could, yeah, drop down towards that 600 to 670 zone for support in Pepe. There's one more everyone's talking about that's doing very well at the moment. Let's take a look at TIA. Here we go. Lots of my streamers talking about this one. Now this, if I has made, whenever we've been in a really long downtrend, which this one has, and we bounce from and we get above a daily 20 moving average, it means we're going up. For me, when I look at the fib pattern here in this chart, so I've got my fibs from this low to high, we've bounced from the 886. People ask me, what's the 886? Well, if the 786 fib is the square root of 61.8, then the 886 is the square root of the 7/8 of 786. And one of the rules I have in trading is if we reverse an 886 and we get above this 786 fib level, then our target is this 50%. And I'll show you some examples of where we've done that. So from here to here is our trade. Now this has gone up in a straight line and is ripping. It really is one of those charts where you need to look for a pullback. Now, those pullbacks tend to happen at a kind of levels that either the most, when you're looking at a downtrend, the most, and you trade a reversal, your first target is the most recent swing high. Quite often you'll see people take profit here and a little bit of a pullback. So I think it's possible we could see a little bit of a pullback here, and a bottoming pattern would be something like a head and shoulders, and I would look for that 6 number to hold as support if we're going to keep going higher, which I think we should. Now we could blast through here, in which case up to this daily 50 moving average before we see a bit of a pullback and we continue higher. Again, I think this is our first wave, second swing, third wave, so don't expect a big pullback, and then we should see another swing higher. But the target is going to be, as long as we hold above 6, our target in TIA next is 11.5. We'll see where we go from there. So I'm trying to, I know Ripple Digital is a really nice 886. Well, I think MATIC. Here's a good chart. Right, MATIC. From the low in 2020 to the high that we made here in December 2021, we bounced from this 886 fib level after a really nasty drop. When we got above this, let's take these other messes away. When we got above this 786, which confirmed the reversal, it's not a straight line to the target. Clearly we got up to this moving average on the weekly and we had a bit of a pullback, but the target was the 50%, and you can see that's where we got to and reverse, and that's the fib pattern that I'm talking about. I'm pretty sure, let's have a look at, pretty sure Ripple did it, but I might be wrong. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's very messy down here, but here's again in Ripple, this 786 fib was a really clear resistance. We struggled to get back above it, but when we did, we went back to this 50% level. So it wasn't textbook perfect in Ripple, it was messy, but that's where the target was, and then we carried on down again. So back tested that 50% level. So that's why I would have that as the first target in TIA. Okay, I hope that's useful. Have a great night. Let me know if there's anything you'd like.